If everything has gone well, we are now live.
That is exciting.
Yay! But now we just need, as always, somebody to tell us that they see us. Oh, right, there's two people here. There we go. Let's do this. There you go, both of us here. Red and C. First, can someone powerful post the link to the Slack chat? We're live. It's live.
So I just had the most bizarre moment of trying to adjust the lighting in here. I went to adjust the lighting because I have Hue Phillips light bulbs, and it wouldn't let me adjust my lights until I updated the app.
Yeah, that's a technology problem. Hey everybody. I'm going to say hello. I'm going to say hello to Daniel McCool, David Joseph Wesley, Dane Coview, Led Avron, Giselle Sabrin, Guido Bibra, Helga Bierkog, Jens Cordua, John Suffield, Larry Beckham, Ocean McIntyre, Quickie Koala, Ren and C, Richard Strassel, Robert Scott Herrick, S. Wahlberg, Sean Harlow, and Valdegast. Also here from the notification. Hey, it worked! It worked. The notification technology is working.
That is super exciting.
So, of course, a huge apology to what happened last week. We were like literally in the middle of the show. Another big storm. I think we've lost count of how many storms we've been hit by now. Probably 10 storms in the last 2 months. Just storm after storm after storm. So much rain. Trees coming down. A tree in my backyard came down. And
Geez.
so last week, the power went out in the city, and it was, not the sort of light power where the power goes off, power comes back on. Power went off and just didn't come back on. And in fact, my cell phone didn't really work for a while because
Geez.
so it was like the cell tower was out. So everyone is, it was pretty funny. Oh, it's French. Dana's saying it's Coview. I don't know. You have to sound it out for me. Now I'm going to sneeze. I'm okay. So power went out. Cell phone went out. Wi-Fi went out. I was like, where can I go? The MacGyver brain and, kicks in. I'm like, I've got to make this live stream continue. So, but no, it was not meant to be. So we had to wrap it up. And the problem is that then literally the next day, I went to Toronto to participate in the YouTube Next Up. So that was fun. I was selected as one of YouTube's 15 Canadian new fresh faces in YouTube creator space. So it was awesome. It was an amazing opportunity. They flew us to Toronto. They put us up in this hotel. They brought in members of the Canadian Cinematography Society who were our mentors. Like the president and the vice president were our mentors for the whole week. We and the one of the sound recorder people, the sound guys on. Apparently, there's separate people that do sound from people who do camera and directing and camera switching and all that. Apparently, that's how it works in the traditional media world. Anyway, so a person who specialized in sound and helped us with audio stuff. It was so great. And then we created a really cool. Apparently, you're a little off to the side. But you can't see what it looks like. Anyway, so we created a video, which I'm hoping to release shortly, which is where we teach you how to make we essentially adapted Carl Sagan's recipe for apple pie, but to make donuts. So,
Well, we all live in a four-dimensional donut, so that's okay.
oh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah. So the point being that, I recommended that you use the leftover heat of the universe that you created and then you had to sort of boost it up a little bit to bake your donuts, things like that. So it was pretty fun. And as soon as I have the, do you need the link to the pop out your tube chat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I will put that in the other chat for you.
Yeah. So last time we tried to record was just one of those days of chaos because I was just looking at the video and I was like, oh my gosh, how did I go on camera looking at that? And then I remembered it was the day my dog had a poopy butt and I had to take a shower immediately before we went on camera after dealing with my dog's gastrointestinal crisis. And so I was clean and quite fresh from the shower.
Yeah, exactly. So, that was pretty funny. Valdegast is saying, how is a Canadian who can't pronounce French words? We can pronounce French words, but I'm from the West Coast, so we didn't learn a lot of French. So your dog though is now fine. You've been you've been good.
Dry hair. Yeah, whole other situation. Okay, so here's what we're going to do, because I sort of went back and listened to what was destroyed, and it was fine up until the 20-minute mark. And so when last we saw our heroes, we were talking about how we would get back from Mars, and that we need less escape velocity to get up to the surface of Mars, and we sort of crashed as our heroes were putting themselves into orbit around Mars. So what I thought we would do is I'm going to go back and play for everybody the last 2 minutes or so of last week's episode. And of course, if you missed the previous episode, you can just go back and listen to them. So this is going to be part 2, as you can see in the description. We'll play that, and then we will literally just jump right in and continue on, and then Chad will glue the 2 pieces together, and the listeners will have no idea that anything happened. All right? That's a fabulous hope, and
it'll work fine. Are you kidding? This is not like me having to make sure the power stays on in my city. This is easy. The other thing, just to let people know, is we're going to be doing another pickup episode of Astronomy Cast on Wednesday, I think.
Yep.
And that's because I am off to Costa Rica on Thursday.
And then I am off to the American Geophysical Union meeting.
Right. Yeah, and so unfortunately, this Costa Rica trip also kills the Space Hangout. And of course, it killed last week's Space Hangout, and it's going to kill the next 2. And I apologize in advance. We're not ready. Normally, we would be able to still do the show, but Chad is also in Europe right now, so he can't engineer the episode. I can't engineer the episode.
After the new year, she'll have me as backup.
And we'll be ready to go, and everything will be fine. But I apologize, and I know these things are important to you. They're important to me, but
go outside, enjoy your holidays.
Exactly. Don't worry about it. Listen to the backlog. Okay, so you ready to do this thing? Okay, let me just find the episode. I'm at the 27-minute mark. I'm gonna feed it through the everything. All right. Beware of rogue monkeys. Yeah, we're gonna be in the foresty of the forest part. We're gonna be literally in the at the national forest, which is apparently the highest. What? Jungle, not forest, says Carla. Yeah, we are crossing off one of Carla's bucket lists here. So, okay, here we go. I'm gonna start this up. Ready? Here we go. Oh, this is like Inception here, but we'll just do it anyway. Rocket launch fuels here on Earth. It's sort of like the perfect fuel to build, and in theory, it should be easy to make. So let's say you've set up this rocket factory. It's landed on the surface of Mars. It has, it's brought in the raw ingredients. It has filled its fuel tank with methane, and somebody who is one of these colonists on Mars has decided, you know what? I want to come home again, please. What happens?
Well, you fuel your tank up, and you hope that you landed level enough that taking off doesn't cause bad things to happen.
All right, let's assume that bad things didn't happen. How much? Now, we talked about Earth, that you need about 10 kilometers per second of velocity to reach escape velocity. What is the escape velocity on Mars?
So on Mars, you're just looking at 5 kilometers per second. And so It's less than half. So if you wanted to go from surface of Earth straight away, you're launching the whole darn thing at once. You have an 11.2 kilometers per second. I recommended you instead go to low Earth orbit. But if you just want to say, I'm done with this place, I'm below in this joint,
Yep.
it's 11.2 kilometers per second. From Mars, 5 kilometers per second. Mars, you also don't have the same issues with atmospheric drag that you have to overcome because the atmosphere is trying to slow you down while you're trying to get out. All in all, getting off the surface of Mars, if you have the fuel and if everything goes right, should be way easier than getting off the surface of Earth. But here on Earth, we have like Kennedy or Wallops
Right.
or any of these other launch
Yeah,
facilities.
you got that boulder field that you landed in on Mars.
Yeah. So
But I was gonna, oh
I never watched these.
no. Okay. I have no idea what I was going to ask, but that's fine. I will ask a new question.
Tell me when you're ready to press record.
Yeah, so let's just talk a little bit about this then. So where we got to was that we were talking about the return trip and that the facilities on Earth, on the surface of Earth, where you've got the ability to refuel and you've got nice hotels for the astronauts to be in, and you've got a much better infrastructure. The Mars infrastructure is going to be a problem. So where I was going was that I wanted to talk about, and we talked about the lower atmospheric pressure, but sort of how that's going to work. And so what I wanted to talk about was just like what kind of facility would we want to have, like going to Phobos? Would we want us to remain in orbit? Would there be some kind of permanent space station? Would we want to do that same thing where we remain in orbit and then make the injection orbit? And we can talk a bit about how the Martian did it with the transporter going back and forth from Earth to Mars. And then right. I thought my plan was that I'd like to talk about sort of some future technologies after that. So we'll sort of get you back to Earth and you re-enter the Earth's atmosphere and sort of what that return journey looks like. And then I wanted to talk a bit about some more futuristic technologies, like what if we're able to use ion drives? What if we're able to use nuclear rockets? What if things are able to bring these transportation times down? And what is sort of the future look like 20, 30, 100 years down the road when we've got some sort of proper infrastructure getting to and from Mars? And that'll sort of wrap up that last 10 minutes or so of the episode. Does that all sound fine to you? Okay, good. All right, well then, tell me when you're ready to press record.
Yes, I'm pressing record. It's recording.
I am also pressing record, and it is also recording. Hello. All right.
Chad, you'll need to levelate this.
Yeah, take 2 of our episode.
We're sorry, Chad.
All right. Yeah. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
So our Martian astronauts, they don't have the nice facilities of the Kennedy Space Center, but instead they've got, they've launched out of this boulder field. They've refueled their Mars rocket on the surface of Mars, and it's running, methane? What's the right trajectory? Do they want to go straight back to Earth, or do they want to go into orbit first? What makes the most sense?
It all depends on how they got there. The way, like we talked about before, the way that Elon Musk is saying is you take your whole spaceship with you, you land, and then you take back off with your entire spaceship that you have now refueled with methane that you have created via various processes on the surface of Mars. This is a nice closed loop system where it's kind of all or nothing, which makes me nervous. If I were the one designing this, and I'm not Elon Musk by so many factors, I am not Elon Musk. I personally am a fan of how they did it with Apollo, where you have your part that goes down and comes back up, but it's not your whole spacecraft. But the problem with that is, if it's not your whole spacecraft, where do you put all the fuel? So this is where you have to consider, do you take your fuel or do you make your fuel? If you make your fuel, you probably need to land the whole thing, in which case, just take off and go. Just take off and go. Fewer things to go wrong. If you're sending your fuel ahead, put it in orbit and catch back up with it.
And you can kind of imagine. Now, what about like docking with Phobos? I mean, is it sort of on the same kind of inclined plane? Does it make sense?
Well, so the docking with Phobos falls into the where is your fuel? So if you were able to get water on Phobos, you could, through respiration and other processes, go through, and you need to get carbon from somewhere. You can go through and end up with methane on Phobos. So it depends on where are you making your fuel. If you took it with you, put it in orbit, rejoin it in orbit. If you made it on Phobos, rejoin it on Phobos. If you're just going straight to the surface, go straight back to Earth.
And so let's imagine that return journey then. How long are you looking at on the way home from Mars?
So just like it took you 9 months to get there, it's going to take you 9 months to get back. So we're looking at a fairly short round trip journey. But you do have to manage to keep yourself alive longer than, like, for instance, you can go without food.
Right. And that was a big part of the Martian movie was, that when the Hermes came back around Earth, they had to pick up more food and supplies because they were going to be stuck on the spacecraft for another 18 months. 9 months out, 9 months back. And that was a whole, lot more freeze-dried food, and they would die and starve if they didn't have
Well, and the thing that they didn't talk about in The Martian is under your nice, normal home in orbit, you have 9 months to get there, 3 months there while you wait for Mars and Earth to get lined back up again, then 9 months home. Well, they somehow did straight there, fired their engines. It wasn't the lowest energy possible orbit. And so they used a different energy that uses even more fuel than your standard 939 would end up taking.
Right. And then coming back, you arrive back at Earth, you get to the atmosphere of Earth, and you just do a direct entry back into the Earth atmosphere. And this is the great part about the Earth's atmosphere is it's thick and stops spacecraft nicely, especially, glad you brought a parachute.
And so there we're easy, but the only problem is, so if you're on the surface of Mars, there's a lot of potential biological hazards where the question is, do you actually want to let those people back onto the surface of Earth? Or are we worried about War of the Worlds kind of bacteria warfare with whatever we brought home with us?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know that this is actually a concern that NASA has experienced in the past that they've talked about. Like when they brought the astronauts back from the moon, they had a bit of a concern about whether they're going to bring some kind of contamination. But to have this stuff have never interacted with Earth life, although Earth would be a pretty great place for some of this stuff to be compared to Mars. This was Mars. But, right, so let's imagine we've got... they've come back. Perhaps they return to the space station and they decontaminate themselves, or they land on Earth and they decontaminate. So that's sort of that's the full journey. They fly off from Earth. They potentially go into orbit. They go to Mars. They land on the surface of Mars. They make some fuel. They return directly back to Earth. That's the first stage. That's the kindergarten version of this. But let's imagine we've sort of pushed forward. We're 20 years, 50 years, 100 years in the future, we've got a more established infrastructure for getting to and from Mars. So instead of me wagon training it from my house to Vancouver and taking a sailboat and so on, I could just take an airplane, right? What is the future infrastructure going to look like to make that journey to and from Mars?
So here my goal, my hope, I can't really say a goal, my hope is that we'll end up with a future where you essentially have spacecraft that are on this permanent orbit where they're just going past the Earth, grab things, drop things off, keep going. So the spacecraft that are controlling our ability to get from Mars to Earth, from Earth to Mars, are just happily orbiting forever. They get docked with near Mars, they get docked with near Earth, an exchange takes place. but no one ever really needs to stop. It's sort of like at Disneyland where you have the rides that never actually come to a complete stop for people to get on and off, but rather you have the moving walkway. Well, for us, the moving walkway will be some sort of a transfer orbit between Earth and that permanently orbiting spacecraft. And we can probably have a couple of them that end up on miss the Earth, sometimes catch the Earth, other times in order to make it fuel economy. But maybe you don't even have to do that if all you're doing is paying the delta V's to catch you back up to the other world.
And you can imagine, like, whether they use ion propulsion or they're going to use that methane that as the spacecraft launch off the surface of Mars, they return fuel to this facility, and then it can act like a way station of fuel. And then you can imagine this kind of far future where this same concept is just spread across the entire solar system, where you've got these spacecraft making these regular transfer journeys. It's a pretty wonderful idea. And so you can imagine you fly off, if you want to go to Mars, you want to go to some other world, you just move from one transfer vehicle to a different one, depending on how much time you want to spend, how much expense you want to, how much fuel you want to use. Your dog is attempting to climb into your chair while you're doing this. While you're doing this recording, he desperately
wants my attention, and he knows how to operate doors.
And he knows how to operate doors. Yeah, I can't believe your dog has thumbs. Just hold it together for about another second. Which was, we talked about this future infrastructure, but what about future technologies? What about faster rockets? What about ion drives? EM drives, assuming they actually work.
Ion drives are kind of sad because they accelerate you so very, very slowly. So when you're starting to want to go the super huge distances with very lightweight things, very small things, then ion drives are useful. Or if you're trying to do something very slowly and fuel economically, like we did with the Dawn spacecraft. But for your average human being, which is, even for the small ones, pretty big, and all the stuff we need to stay alive, the water recycling systems, the everything. We're going to need something other than ion drives. Currently, the best we've got is fuel sources, hydrazine, methane. Pick a fuel source. The mono ones like hydrazine, hydrogen peroxide are pretty good for situations like this. But what's cool is this is actually one of those things where science fiction writers have done a lot to pioneer what are the cool ideas. Again, Kim Stanley Robinson, I'm just going to keep promoting his books. He looks towards a future where essentially the more rugged asteroids, those that don't fall apart when you dig holes into them, have been mined out, spun up, and put into a whole variety of orbits that allow you to basically go from asteroid to asteroid, switching between orbits to get from one side of the solar system to the other.
It'll just be amazing when we've got that infrastructure. And I can't even imagine like laser systems that could be delivering blasts to solar sails and things like that. So
although they're laser sails at that point. Again, this also comes up in a Kim Stanley Robinson book.
Right. But the point is, the more you get that stuff out into space, the more easily it becomes to move from place to place. If you read Seven Eves, they've got an entire system that's all like almost mechanical based. Like their methods of moving you from orbit to orbit and place to place is tethers and rotating energy transfer systems. That it's not rockets, it's just huge rotating scoops that pick you up at one orbit and release you at a different orbit, because all that really matters is just your change in velocity and your change in your direction. So
and you can get picked up essentially as you glide through the atmosphere. It's rather glorious and terrifying all at the same time.
Yeah, it sounded like a pretty sketchy way to get up into orbit and yet very inexpensive. So it was great. All right, well, thanks, Pamela. We'll see you next week.
My pleasure. I am so sorry about Invasion of the Fluffle Monster.
That worked great. Man, okay. Power system, was that so tough? Man. All right, I'm going to export this one too. We are safe, but for how long? All right. Let's see. Larry Beckham wants to know that Apollo slams into the Earth at 11 kilometers per second. What is the return speed for Mars from a free home and transfer?
What is the return speed or
Speed of
delta V?
Well,
Oh,
crashing into the Earth's atmosphere. How fast are you going when you hit Earth's atmosphere? From a free return home and transfer from Mars.
yeah, it's actually not that different. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. I want to say it's 20 some kilometers per second difference between the orbital velocity and the Earth's velocity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually, I think the Earth is going slower at this point because it's an elliptical orbit. So that'll be the faster part of the elliptical orbit.
The bottom line is you haven't done the math.
Yeah.
Not really sure. By the way, did I fix the problem with my microphone? Listeners, have you heard my microphone go blurt since I think I made that fix? Because if so, then the world needs to know. From Dane Coview, would we need to worry about extraterrestrial bacteria threatening Earth life? I imagine the evolutionary disparity between Mars and Earth life would be enough to prevent mass infection. So this is the question that we were talking about. Which is that, I mean, like, Earth life has... any life from Mars would have evolved in this very special, very specific environment, while Earth life is all kinds of things, right? Like it'll have extreme environments, and it'll have stuff that's designed to be sitting on the surface of the planet in the nice, warm, tropical time. So I mean, what do you think is more likely, that we will infect Mars or Mars will infect us?
So at a certain level, my gut, which is not trained in microbiology,
But
has
filled with
microbiology.
microbiology.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is of the rather strong opinion that, well, it should be just like in general, I'm not going to catch a cold from my horse. The ability of a bacteria to be compatible with both my biology and my horse's biology is very rare. You do get the occasional something that happens that causes it to jump between species. And you don't generally get things that infect horses also infecting lizards, because they're just too different. And so it seems like, looking at how things contaminate one another on Earth, the probability that something on Mars would make people on Earth sick seems low, because they just aren't evolved to be compatible with our biology that we know of.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where there's always we don't know if panspermia occurred and they're already happily adjusted to us. Low probability, but we don't know. We don't know what other factors there are that we don't know about. And that's always the big issue with astrobiology, is the things we don't know about. And we don't know how to figure out the probabilities or factor in.
Yeah. And so it's just better to just be safe. Which is, which is a good way to approach this, because we've made so many mistakes in the past. In invasive species and encountering other civilizations. Like, all we do is screw it up. So,
right.
With murder. Susie asks, have we watched Mars on Nat Geo yet?
No, I haven't. Not yet.
Nope.
I don't get Nat Geo, so I need to download it on iTunes.
I don't have television.
Yeah, I don't either. When I say I don't get Nat Geo, I also don't have ABC. So
yeah, I have the internet. If it's not on YouTube or Netflix, I haven't seen it, because I don't get Hulu, because I'm a filthy Canadian, and I don't get Amazon Prime because I'm a filthy Canadian. So if it's not on Netflix or YouTube, I don't get a chance to watch it. I don't get HBO now because I'm a filthy Canadian. I can just keep going with this. I don't get YouTube Red anyway. You
I think
understand?
you're actually a pretty clean Canadian, but I understand the problem.
Yeah, yeah. No, not for us. Not for us. But I'm sure, we have a huge international audience, and you people know what I'm talking about. David Joseph Wesley asks, does KSP have a scenario for returning from Mars, a simulation? Well, I mean, they
Kerbal
just
Space Program. Yeah, I
they
believe
have it. Well, they don't have it as necessarily as a different simulation. I mean, you can launch off the surface of Mars of Duna in Kerbal Space Program, return to Earth, or return to Kerbin, and that's no problem. There you go. Oh, Elad Everyone's saying that my mic is doing the blurping now once a minute or so. I hate technology. That is all. Okay. Oh, I have a mosquito here. Nope, got away. I'm just getting prepared for Costa Rica.
take all of the DEET, all of it.
Don't talk about this. So the lesson is don't talk about the blurt. Yeah, so no, I haven't had a chance to see it. But actually, the people from Nat Geo have been super nice about it and have reached out to us and offered us screenings. And I don't know if they talked to you, but they talked to us and have made all of the people in the show available for doing interviews and stuff. But
That's cool.
yeah, thanks for that. But we just haven't. They're like, if you live in New York City, you can come and check out our big interactive event. Yeah, I live on a little island. Well, a huge island off the coast of Canada, so it's a little hard to get there. Valdegas says, could we live on Titan? Of course, it's cold, but there's no danger of cosmic radiation.
The cold is kind of profound. It's
Yeah, 100.
you don't have the radiation to contend with, but it's going to be and you have much more ready sources of methane. But the whole keeping yourself fed issues, and it's a whole lot longer of a journey to get there. Radiation issues.
Yeah. So what is the surface temperature on Titan? Minus 140 or something like that?
I don't know. I have to look it up.
Yeah. Let me just Google that. 180 degrees Celsius. So, I mean, obviously you couldn't.
You mean negative?
Minus 180 degrees Celsius. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So the absolute coldest that has ever been on Earth is minus 60 or something.
Yeah.
So this is 120 degrees worse than that. And the problem is it does have that thick atmosphere, so it would just be awful. It would sap away the warmth because it would have tons of convection. When you're out in space, there is no problem with convection. It's just how quickly your spacesuit radiates that heat away. But on Titan, that cold atmosphere is going to be bumping up against your suit and carrying away your heat. So I don't know what a coat looks like that keeps you warm at minus 180 degrees Celsius. But if you had some kind of spacesuit that kept you warm, then you wouldn't need a pressure suit. I mean, that's the kind of really wonderful thing, and you don't have to worry about the radiation. Just mind-bendingly cold. The low gravity is still a problem, so Titan is bad too. There's nowhere good. There's just Earth, right? As our temperatures are rising, as our oceans are rising, just don't forget that Earth is the best, right?
Yeah.
If you want to go to a tropical paradise compared to Mars, head to Antarctica. Red and Seat wants to know, could we use the Lagrange points for the travel between Mars and Earth? Yeah, so I actually did an episode about the interplanetary transport system, and it would take 10,000 years to go from Earth to Mars via the interplanetary transport system, via the Lagrange points.
How does that work?
Well, you just sort of get these low energy windows open up where you can they're like windows of but the point is with Earth to Mars, you have to sort of do this dance back and forth to slowly make your way over into the hill sphere of Mars. So it's really bad. I think it would be, am I using some kind of software or hardware for volume dynamic range compression? Not that I know of. I wonder if the Rick Dickert is saying, wondering if I have some kind of compressions going on. Let me see if I have something on my settings from OBS. They don't have a lot of settings. I don't think so.
It could be part of your streaming software, because I remember we had that problem with Skype for a while.
Yeah, no, I think it's advanced audio. No. No, I don't know whether it happens, if it's still happening right now. I don't have any specific. I'm just using online broadcast system, so. And I've seen some people complaining about this, and that it is something about there's some connection between the way the camera works and the way the microphone works in the online broadcasting system is the problem. So, and I thought I had fixed it because because this is how it works. You change the output, the output to MJPEG, and I'm doing that. So, whoops, I want MJPEG, and that was supposed to fix it. So there you go. Mic got louder. Well, the other part is that the various technology on a Windows machine likes to grab access to the microphone and make it louder and softer. It's enraging, all this stuff. Anyway, let's not talk about microphones anymore. David Joseph Wesley, what do you guys know about New Horizons' next flyby on January 1st?
I have to admit, I actually don't, other than it's not that incredibly close, and so the resolution won't be fabulous, but it's better than what we get from Earth. And there goes Fraser Googling.
Type. The big one's in 2019.
Yeah.
The next big one. Yeah. I don't see much even about it from New Horizons, so. No, I don't have anything yet. So
okay.
It doesn't sound like it's going to be a big one, but it's still great that they're getting science off the spacecraft. So, go New Horizons. High Champ is suggesting an episode of Mars. Okay. Thomas Tranneker says that minus 93 is the record on Earth. Oh, that's pretty sad. Nicola Williams says it's on YouTube. Okay, well, then I'll go watch it on YouTube.
Cool.
And Larry Beckham wants to know, how can you do a hot landing not melting on Titan? You have to be very careful when you land on Titan.
Yeah. Thick atmosphere, lots of friction, bad things occur, atmosphere slightly explosive-y.
Right. The whole planet is like made of bomb, isn't it?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Don't light a match.
Okay, well, I think we should wrap up right now. We've got to do another episode in a couple of days, title yet unchosen, but we will choose. Something continuing on the Mars spectrum. And thanks, everyone, for joining us this week. Thanks for asking all your questions. We'll see you all in a couple of days. Bye. All right. I'm going to figure out a way to shut this off again. Okay, here we go.